Well, when you fix it, you can tell us how this all went down.
All right, how's that? Is that better?
Better.
Much better.
All right, I got a Zoom call in about 20 minutes from now, so I got about 20 minutes right now. But
so sock it to me then. What happened? Tell me all.
I'll just give the brief highlights. So it started with a really nice video. Like they had a really nice presentation. I have to give them credit for it, and it looked like they were going in what I think many of us would regard would be the right direction in terms of mass appeal, family appeal. There was a lot of focus on the parks, the attractions, and I'm going to tell you that, and I'm going to say it. I was surprised that I saw as many white people as I did in that opening promo video, because I'm so used to, these woke messages and images and all of that. And I mean, I got to say that I thought it was going incredibly well. Then it moved from the opening remarks and the opening video to the legal. And when the second, and so that was the first part. So then the whole thing was a train wreck. I thought it was going to go for a couple hours, and it derailed fast, and it ended abruptly. But I'll get to that in a moment. So that was the first. I'll call that the first phase. Then we went into the legal and the shareholder proposals, and there were several major initiatives. One very woke, and two incredibly not so. Yeah. And of course, because of the number of stock shares that companies like the equity firms have, like BlackRock and others, these were things that weren't going to get voted down. But the very first proposal that came out talked about citing, hey, one of the proposals was to get Disney away from woke politics, to get Disney away from some of the things that we all cover on all these channels about the things that they do that are far from just entertain families globally. So those proposals were very hard, and if we want to roll the tape, we could roll the tape, but the proposals were very, very strong. Now, of course, they're going to get voted down, but they really called the company to task. And then, of course, the attorney for Disney called for a vote, and of course, the votes were overwhelmingly, the people that were promoting that Disney get back on track were completely outvoted by all the woke shares that were held by the investment firms such as BlackRock and others that hold so many stock shares, right? So then we went into phase 3. So that was phase 2, which were the proposals. And then we went into phase 3, which were the live investor calls, where the retail investors, people like me, I am a Disney stockholder. And so, Culture's one, Reina Creole, there's other people. So I'm a Disney stockholder. So people like us can actually call in. Now, the calls are always screened. You have to be on the registry. You have to register in advance, and you call in, and they screen them. And so, if I were going to ask a very pointed, acidic question, I'm sure, me being Mexican, I am being Mike the way I am, Nate, I would, I want to talk about how awesome the Mandalorian and Disney Plus is.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there was plenty of that going on because, as Culture mentioned, those three of the 5 calls. One call is, I'm going to call it fairly neutral. The final call was very pro-Disney. The other ones were just off the rails.
They wrecked them.
I mean, just wrecked them. And you could tell that Bob Iger's demeanor went from the very beginning to where it was in alignment with the opening video, controlled, intelligent, political, executive, to starting to get defensive, then flustered, then almost antagonistically defensive and irritated, leading to the end of the final call, which was favorable. Thank you, Bob, for blah blah blah. Then he says he's in the way the way he led into that at the end was, before we wrap this call up, let's go ahead and you could just hear in his voice that he was probably looking around the room, and it ended abruptly. It just completely ended abruptly.
Oh, so it's like his aides on hand were like, no.
I can't remember, Mike, and correct me if I'm wrong. I can't remember the last shareholders meeting or the annual meeting being less than like an hour and a half to 2 hours. This was an hour and 1 minute and change.
Yeah.
Never seen that before.
Yep.
Yeah. And in the proposals from the shareholders like Mike and I, they were pissed that these were being read out the way they were. Because it really did call Disney on the carpet. I put in the timestamp for the one that I think Mike was referencing earlier that really just set Iger's teeth on edge. He is not in a comfortable position, and I really feel like Nelson Peltz now has more people that will side with him after that call than ever before. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean,
Mike?
if you want to play a snip, we have the clip. It's in the private chat, and it's time stamped. If you just want to get,
like
a
I said,
brief
that's totally up to Nate because I don't know what kind of time we got here. But
yeah, that's true. We are
We
a bit
got
over.
time. It's more so. It's I can't get the sound. That's the issue. So,
I've got it here if you want it.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah, I got it shared down below here.
I always have problems with the sound, don't I? So
Okay.
I've got Nick dropping in there as well.
Thanks, Mr. Iger, for taking on this
Hey,
challenge
Nick.
that you agreed to in
Hey, what's
November
up?
and your work thus far and in the future. My question is, in the second quarter of last year, the company spent $1 billion to essentially buy back licensed content to stream exclusively on our properties. To return, you've emphasized a focus on producing content for the DTC platforms, mainly from the core four, as I like to call them, and potentially licensing undifferentiated content from other owned studios and IP, or possibly producing new content for others out of these creative outlets. Could you share what kind?
Okay, just to translate that real quick for some people who might not be knowing what they're talking about, he's talking about them buying back like the Deadpool series from Netflix, for instance, and making everything exclusive to Disney while not producing anything anymore for any other streamers or licensing out any of their products anymore, and how that's affected their bottom line. Right, Mike?
Yep.
Okay, so just so those who may not understand what he just said there with all those letters. Like, yeah.
Content required the $1 billion last year, and whether we can expect any future revenue derived from producing content for others, and if so, when we might hear about this. And on a lighter note, if you could somehow swing getting the Marvel theme park rights east of the Mississippi back from Comcast during the Hulu negotiations, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Carmine. I like the second part of your question. We certainly would love to be able to do more with Marvel in our parks, but I'll leave it at that. Regarding your first question, the primary shift that occurred in terms of licensing content to third parties came when we determined that
This is the neutral question, by the way.
Oh, is it? I thought it was the
No, the acidic one comes next.
Streaming.
Okay.
We have
sorry about that.
From Florida.
That's what I thought.
Please go ahead.
I was going with the time stop.
Yeah,
stamp you gave me here.
Did you pause it and then
No.
talk?
Sharon, your line is open.
No,
Right.
I think they missed.
Good morning, Bob.
Here we go.
Welcome back. I'm a long-term shareholder and a big Disney fan, D23 member, pin trader, pass holder.
Well, this is the premier pass question.
15 years ago,
Yeah, go to the next
in
one, Nate.
Albuquerque,
wasn't
was the first time we met.
Or
No,
Tom.
that's in this.
We had a
That's later on. You guys did
conversation
the
which
same thing to me
continued then
yesterday.
in Oakland a year later and culminated in an announcement in San Antonio in 2010, though I wasn't present at that meeting. The Premier Passport was announced and was well received. 10 years later, 2020, it disappeared without announcement at all. So I tried to renew mine. I had no clue it was no longer available. When my call was opportunity to ask the other Bob why that pass could be made to work with the Premier Pass.
Walt Disney World. What steps have already been taken or will be taken to protect shareholder value with regard to the legal battle between Disney and
This is the one where he probably screwed his entire company and cost himself billions of dollars right here.
For tax purposes. My son lives in Orlando and he's worried about his taxes going up.
Alan, let me, if you don't mind, let me address this issue, which I haven't really done much publicly, but I'd love the opportunity just to put it all in perspective. First of all, I know you said you're a resident, I think, of Melbourne, Florida. We love the state of Florida. And I think that's reflected in not only how much we've invested over the last 50 years, but how much we've given back in the form of jobs and community service, taxes, which you brought up, tourism, of course, and all sorts of other responsible business practices. We've also always respected and appreciated what the state has done for us. It's kind of been a two-way street. But a year ago, the company took a position on pending Florida legislation. And while the company may have not handled the position that it took very well, a company has a right to freedom of speech just like individuals do. And obviously, in taking the position, the governor got very angry about the position Disney took. And it seems like he's decided to retaliate against us, including the naming of a new board to oversee the property and the business. In effect, to seek to punish a company for its exercise of a constitutional right. And that just seems really wrong to me, against any company or individual, but particularly against a company that means so much to the state that you live in. And to put that in perspective, we have over 75,000 employees, which I noted in my opening. Countless thousands of indirect jobs have been created. About 50 million visitors will go through our gates this year alone, about 8 million of them from outside the US. And we are the largest taxpayer in the state. And you may find this interesting as it relates to future taxes, but we're currently planning now to invest over $17 billion in Walt Disney World over the next 10 years. And those investments, we estimate, will create 13,000 new Disney jobs and thousands of other indirect jobs. And they'll also attract more people to the state and generate more taxes. And so our point on this is that any action.
Oh,
they cut me off. What happened?
Well, that's okay. That was enough of a flavor in that, because basically what he did there is he did two things. One is that he ramped up the fight with the governor of Florida pretty deliberately. And number two is that by saying that they have a right to constitutional U.S. free speech, he basically said that the way that they were trying to run this tax district was like a subunit of the corporation, and that's not supposed to be that way. There's supposed to be separation and no conflict of interest, Nate. Like, it's just like as if, just imagine if you yourself, somewhere in London wanted to say, hey, this park is my park, but no, it's a park for everyone. It's a park for the, it's a governmental entity. But somehow you said, no, I'm going to put my card there and I'm going to park it there and it's going to become my showroom. And so that's essentially what he did. And by doing that, it vastly weakens the case that they have in order to keep these privileges, not rights, privileges intact going forward.
Yeah, and I see that also setting up an opportunity for if this is going to become this tit for tat, I see an opportunity for eminent domain, condemnation, all kinds of other things the state can bring to bear, against an entity residing in a county. This was a bad move, not to mention the fact of tactical error. And I think Mike nailed it 100%. I think this is, you basically have cast in doubt all of your motivations for the actions that you took and have been taking with that area.
Do you have the juicy one queued up, Tom? Or...
I don't know. I got one of them here.
Las Vegas, Nevada. Please go
I think
ahead.
this is a good one. I'm not sure.
This is a good one.
Good morning, Bob, and thank you for coming back after a successful retirement. It's a painful task, I'm sure, and I know that you do it for love of the company, not for money. Regarding the last question brought up, I disagreed that Disney has an obligation to take political positions that are detrimental to the overall company. It's just pointless. But anyway, setting that aside, your comments earlier about concentrating on the streaming service going forward as a primary business front. And I just did some quick calculations that if there are 100 million households in America and we get 100% of them at $7 a month times 12 months, that's $8 billion a year, less than 10% of the revenue of the Walt Disney Corporation. In other words, it's a capped amount. It's like the number of heads of hair a barber can cut is finite. There's not more hours in a day. So I'm questioning the comments you also made about, and since you brought up their name, I'll bring it up too, Netflix, which has produced volumes of second-tier content. And I can only say that my own watch list has 400 or 4,000 things I'm going to watch later, but I never seem to get to it. Having gone through the video store business in the 1980s and seeing how the video store business was destroyed not by Netflix, but rather by oversupply of content to the consumers, overwhelming their ability to make choices. And so I would just ask you to reevaluate that, because it's not playing the infinite game, it's playing a finite game. There's only a finite number of households that can pay $7 a month for Disney Plus. So anyway, my comment is it wise for the company to take political positions that to satisfy a very small portion of the people when our primary mission is entertainment, not education?
Okay, well, Raymond, first of all, I respect your position on this and appreciate your question. And I would like to address that. Look, first of all, as the CEO of the company, I think my job is to strive to do what I think is best for our business, and that includes doing what's best for our cast members or our employees, and what will enable both to flourish. I don't think we should or can weigh in on every issue. And I also understand there are going to be gray areas. There are going to be times when we decide to weigh in on an issue that we believe is worthy of debate because of its relevance and importance to our business or to our employees. And there are times when I actually believe we shouldn't. But I strongly feel that we alone have to determine whether, when, or how to weigh in on an issue, whether it's private or public. Of course, with the standard that when we take a position on those matters, there's a true reason why we have. And in almost all cases, it has to be because it directly affects our business or our people. And I think if you look back over decades, corporate America has expressed themselves on numerous issues of both right and wrong. And our country, I think, is better off for that. And this was evident during the civil rights era, as I recall as a child, when a lot of companies weighed in on injustices that they saw in America. It was certainly true during World War II, when those that stood in silence, in some ways, still carried the stain of indifference. So as long as I'm in the job, I'm going to continue to be guided by a sense of decency and respect and trust our instincts.
There's nothing decent about teaching inappropriate things. They're not saying it's not the whole thing. They weaponize the bill against everyone anyway because they're like, don't say gay. No, it's don't say anything. Don't say anything sexually inappropriate to an age that's inappropriate.
Nate,
how is that fucking Jesus?
Bob Iger's basically the Winston Churchill of woke.
Of course he is. Well, yeah. Oh my God. And Ron DeSantis is basically Hitler at this point. Fucking what a dickhead. It's such nonsense. It's always in the best interest of our company and cast. What, to teach 5-year-olds about sucking dick? Piss off, mate. How on earth can you even say that? Because that's what it was. Oh my God.
If you like that, you're going to love 5427. Cue it, Tom.
Yeah, it gets better.
I'd like to address what I view as the elephant in the room. Over the last few years, Disney has turned from a place of magic for children to an ideological company serving LGBTQ, IA+, however many other letters you want to add to that, lobbies to groom children. Over and over again, we see how your films and entertainment are increasingly promoting the woke agenda. How can you explain to parents worldwide that you recently celebrated 100 years of history by collaborating with the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus to produce an LGBTQ IA+ themed Disney musical? This is a group who have explicitly stated that they want to indoctrinate children. They literally sang a concert and they sang the words, "We will convert your children quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it." Disney chose to collaborate with these predators to sing to children. How can you explain to parents worldwide that over the next few months, dozens of highly sexualized gay pride parades will take place in Disneyland parks worldwide, the exact places where they used to take their children for fun? Are you surprised that Disney's audience has plummeted, losing 2.4 million subscribers in the last quarter? Parents have simply had it up to here. No wonder you were laying off 7,000 employees from today, in addition to the other thousands last year. No wonder Disney's stock value dropped more than 30% over 1 year. As a Disney shareholder, I have a simple question. Would it not be beneficial for the company to ditch the LGBTQ, IA+, and gender ideology for good? If you are really interested in refloating Disney, please turn Disney back to the apolitical fun place that it used to be. And I bet that you'll win back both the trust of families and the stock market. Thank you.
Amen. I like that.
Thank you very much for your question. I know you were talking about more than just content. You were talking about experiences that we provide to people, which we actually pride ourselves on being accessible to all people. But let me put some perspective, if you don't mind, create some perspective here too. You know that our company is celebrating its 100th year this year. And we've been telling stories for 100 years that are aimed at entertaining and inspiring families from all over the world. And we're extremely proud of the positive impact we've had on billions of people over that 100-year period of time. And for generations, the stories that we've told have touched people's hearts because they've been infused with right values. They've celebrated heroes and emphasized the value of family and friendship. They've instilled a steady faith in the belief that good triumphs over evil, that tomorrow is always brighter than today. And I think those stories have had an amazingly positive impact on the world, a world that always loves and needs great stories and heavens, great entertainment, particularly in today's world.
Deflect.
We've recently gotten criticism, as you just expressed, for what some perceive to be agenda-driven content. And I'm sensitive to that, actually. Our primary mission needs to be to entertain, and then through our entertainment to continue to have a positive impact on the world. And I'm very serious about that. It should not be agenda-driven. It should be entertainment-driven. That should be the goal in all of our stories. And while I know we're just never going to please everyone all the time, we should be sensitive to the fact that parents have different levels of comfort with the content that is delivered to their children. I want parents to be able to trust the content that we're creating for their children, and we're committed to delivering age-appropriate content for family audiences while also telling stories that reflect the world around us and that foster a greater understanding, greater perspective, greater acceptance of all people. And I just my hope that Disney continues to be a source of hope and optimism for the world. And we're honored to actually carry forth Walt's legacy of inspiring joy and wonder for everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay. That's a whole lot of.
Thank you. And our next one.
Hold the fuck up there, Bob.
Didn't address the 30%.
Not only that, he kind of. It sounded like to me he supported the idea of supporting this group.
Yeah,
because I've seen these videos. This guy is not kidding.
Unbelievable.
Sorry for the language, folks, but yeah.
I don't know how anybody can give Disney money.
Yeah.
Like I don't give them anything. Like I don't subscribe to Disney Plus, even though I have my ways of still watching the content for the channel. But I will never go to their parks. I'll never buy their merchandise. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm not on Disney Plus. I have access to a friend's basically.
Yeah.
Which I don't pay any money for because they have it for their kids. But I mean, oh my god, that guy absolutely. That's brutal.
He got obliterated.
Look, I mean, in the shareholder proposal that they were voting on addressed a lot of this stuff that we didn't actually listen to, and it would take a few minutes to listen to. But Mexican Iron Man was wonderful to listen to yesterday when he lost his marbles, and also when he lost his marbles on Loki's show this morning. I much enjoyed that. He is one of the best YouTubers I know. So
you're muted, Mike.
I want to show Nate that I'm actually Mexican because I have a sombrero. So, so I got to run to a Zoom call, Nate. I'm sorry I can't stay longer, but you guys have fun. You guys have fun discussing it. Hopefully, you're able to see that it started off. I mean, if you watch that first video, it started off great, and it just went off the rails. So, thanks for having me, and I got to run a Zoom call. Thank you.
Hi, Mikey.
Hey, Mike.
Love you, Mike.
Dude. So
love you guys all. Thanks.
See you, buddy.
There's Valiant.
As Mike goes, we got Valiant dropping in. Do you want to chime in on this?
Oh man, we did some chime in yesterday live when this was going on, and obviously we kind of couldn't contain ourselves. But we do warn people it's a reaction show. That's what you get. But yeah, everything y'all said, I was listening in the car ride home. I just walked in the door. Y'all are right, and that's Nate. There was the same reactions I had when we heard it. Bob Iger, indeed, compared the civil rights movement of the 1960s here in the U.S. and World War II storming the beaches of Normandy, I guess, to drag queens shaking their junk in your kids' faces at a family-friendly show. That's where we are. That is. I mean, this is the hill that we choose to die on, I guess, at Disney now. And yeah, the whole issue with Reedy Creek. The simple answer people have been asking me all day. Well, what was Bob Iger supposed to say? This is very simple. Well, as you know, the Reedy Creek Improvement District is an independent special district that was formed by the Florida State Legislature in 1967. The Walt Disney Company operates its facilities inside that district. We have nothing to do with it as an independent district, but I'm sure they will comply with all the Florida state regulations that are thrust upon them. And you stop. Yeah. But he went into, we were trying to make free speech, and they came at us. They came at, I mean, he said us. He conflated the word. Ron DeSantis came at the company with RCID, basically pulling the veil back and admitting what everybody knew, that there was no independence to RCID. It's been Disney all along, which is a violation of the spirit of the law that created them. So.
What a shit show.
It was a mess. It was a total mess.
How did that guy's question even get in there? What happened to the QC people that are supposed to be checking?
Well, Mikey kind of told that just before you got in here, Nick. Actually, he addressed that. He goes, the easiest way to do that is kiss their ass up front, and then you lead yourself into another story, another question. And a lot of these guys did that. If you didn't notice, they led in with something ass kissing.
Great to have you back, Bob.
Praising him, and then would bring up something that was kind of an actual question, but within that question, bury the "why did you get into the politics" bullshit.
Right. I even said yesterday on the show, I said, I promise you, at least one of those callers was handed some data. I mean, actual stockholder, but probably handed some talking points by somebody from DeSantis's office.
I you know what? I jumped on that same bandwagon, but this is almost like what I predicted on Sunday Night Show. I'm like, somebody's going to get in there. They're going to say something uncomfortable, and Iger's not going to be able to
several somebodies.
Well, we've been waiting for this for the last couple of years, and we know they've been really good at screening the calls. It was just a matter of time, and I think between Peltz stirring enough people up, the fact that their stock has dropped so hardcore, they haven't had a hit in years, regardless of how well you think that the Thor: Love and Thunder and or Doctor Strange did last year. Doctor Strange was the only one that kind of made money. Thor: Love and Thunder made less money than Thor Ragnarok and cost almost twice as much as Thor Ragnarok at the end of the day.
Ragnarok was $175 and that was $250.
And that's $250, exactly, almost twice as much.
What was he talking about on with the Marvel stuff and doing stuff in their parks? Are they not licensed to be able to do Marvel stuff?
There's this weird licensing deal. How does it go, Culture? Do you know it? Or do
you everything east of the Mississippi, anything that they haven't used in their parks is controlled by Universal. The rights deal that Universal put together originally for having Marvel in their parks is protected until Universal decides not to relicense the license is infinite. They just have to keep paying for it, basically.
This deal was done way back before Disney was even part of
before Paul Motter brought the deal to Disney in the first place.
It's the same kind of deal that Marvel inked with Sony for Spider-Man prior to the Disney buy. So it's the same thing. As long as Sony keeps making Spider-Man movies every so many years, they get to maintain full film rights to the character in that universe. Same thing with Universal. They just have to keep up the maintenance on the contract, and it's theirs until they decided not to keep it. But I will say this, one of the issues, just to everybody to understand, there is a difference between quarterly earnings calls and an annual stockholder meeting, and that's one of the reasons why we had actual individuals able to reach through the phone lines. They used to do that sometimes, but more quarterly earnings calls that have happened in recent years, they have been, because of time constraints, they tend to restrict it to the larger institutional investors or the big wirehouses or something like that, whereas on an annual stockholder meeting, they're going to let, average Joe get through as a mom and pop stockholder to ask a question, which is what we got. So I don't expect to see that trend continue, certainly not during the earnings calls, but we'll get more of that next year during the annual stockholders meeting.
How do you get to be one of these people to ask a question? I want to be on there.
You got to own stock. You have to be registered with the transfer agent that oversees, the ownerships or the ownership roster of all Disney outstanding shares. And then you have to just call in and get in the queue and
get lucky.
So that's what I'm saying. The fact that like 2 or 3 of these people actually made it onto the call tells me
that percentage rate is much higher.
That's what I was getting at earlier.
There was a lot of people with those questions ready to go in the queue trying to get in. Somebody was going to bang those out.
In Valiant, how about this? That was so prevalent in the way those calls are being screened that That's why the meeting ended early at 1 hour and 1 minute and something seconds.
Yeah, they had one more positive question, but I was told from 2 people now that legal got involved and shut it down.
Last year, I think the last 2 years, matter of fact, I went back and checked, and I'd looked before the earnings call because we were trying to plan out the live show timing. They're usually an hour and a half. They had an hour of presentation.
I'm surprised
and then half
it's still
an hour
available, to be honest with you. I think they have to keep it available, though, right, Valiant?
They do keep them up, but last year's actual presentation was almost an hour long before they got to Q&A. This year's, the presentation was what, maybe 30 to 35 minutes? Yeah, 40 minutes.
Wait, no. Are you counting before or after the vote?
I'm counting from the time the actual call started.
Okay, so until the vote ended?
Well, all the way up until the point that they got to the Q&A.
Okay, yeah, so that was, you're right. So basically they were 40 minutes in, 40 minutes in?
Yeah, they were 20, 30 minutes shy of what they did last year. But I mean, but that being said, look, it is what it is. I could hear Horacio Gutierrez just shifting in his chair and crapping his pants as Iger was answering some of these questions. That's Disney's chief lawyer, by the way, folks. He was on the call. You saw his picture up there.
He was very unhappy with the question. He knew what the question was going to be from the first proponent, right? The guy that asked the question specifically about.
Well, the actual proposals, they know going in exactly what the proposals are. They don't necessarily know what the proponent of that initiative, of that measure, is going to say, but they know what the gist of the. They're prepared for that, and that's why Gutierrez is running that part of the call as Disney's top lawyer and executive in that case, and he's just saying, okay. Thank you very much. The board recommends a vote against this measure or for this measure, and that's it. They move on to the next one. And by that point, those votes are already in. They're already tallied. It's like the Oscars. You're watching the Oscars, right? The votes are already in. They're already done. They're already cast. All right, but they're still going to give you the slate of nominees at that point. Doesn't matter. They already know who won. So you're on that call finding out what's passing and what's failing. And it's pretty obvious from the get-go. I mean, even one of the left-leaning groups that wanted, Disney to be more transparent with some donations and things like this, they throw that up every year for the last 3, 4, 5 years, as far as I can remember. Every year they propose the same measure. Every year it gets shot to pieces. So.
What an epic shit show.
It was.
I liked when he was talking about how they were going to be doing all this stuff that was going to bring all these jobs to Florida, like 13,000 new jobs or something. I'm like, where are these coming from? If you got all this stuff, new jobs, people. And now you're laying off 7,000 right now.
Said that yesterday. Is like, wait, you just made an announcement a few weeks ago that you're cutting $5.5 billion in CapEx at Disney, and now on this call to bail yourself out, you're saying that you're going to spend $17 billion in the next 10 years. I'm like, wait, one doesn't match the other, bro. It's
when he said that, I was like, that's horseshit. He's straight up lying right there.
Yeah. Yeah, fucking Jesus. And the whole nonsense of, a company, we got freedom of speech. No, you don't. You're a company.
And the thing is, as a company that's publicly traded, you shouldn't take a stand one way or another on either side. Just do your content that is what that guy was saying, apolitical. You're not taking a side or an agenda.
The thing is that he's sat there going, well, we need to do what's best for our castmates and our employees. No, you don't.
No,
you actually don't. Fuck them. You need to do what's best actually for the people that are paying.
Yeah, pay the customers and the shareholders.
Jesus Christ.
Here in the U.S., I mean, and to an extent, though, Nate, he is right. I mean, even in the U.S., a corporation is considered a private entity. It does have a right to express itself, even at the corporate level, without fear of reprisal, or from the government. However, and this is the part that bugged me, and I want to make this clear to everybody out there watching, there's no right to have your own special taxing district.
No, this is the thing.
That's a privilege.
This is what I said in my video, because he's like, well, that he's anti-business and anti-Florida. Fuck off, Bob. What about all the other businesses in Florida? They don't have the same privileges you've got, you bellend. They get by pretty fine. They're not bitching to Ron DeSantis saying, where's our special privileges, you anti-Floridian, anti-business motherfucker? They're just get on with it, mate.
Well,
Shut
yeah,
up,
there's
Bob.
1,700
Fucking
other
hell.
special taxing districts in the state of Florida. None of them had what Reedy Creek had for the last 60 years. And even Universal had gone to the state many times over the years. Hey, can we get the Disney deal? We're right next door. No. Because that Disney deal was so bad for the state, and they knew it, but nobody had the political willpower to unwind it in the legislature for decades on end until
DeSantis, because he actually does stuff. And this is what I said in my video today. I was like, this is not, regardless of whether you like him or you dislike him, Bob Iger should not have done this, because of all the people you're going to piss off, you're pissing off the one man that will absolutely categorically actually do something now on the back end of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he does have the political willpower. He does have the stones and the conviction to go, well, fuck off then. No, we're not doing this. No, see ya. Like, he's more than happy to. He's proven himself. He's not one of these. He's not like a sock puppet politician that just placates through everyone and then does nothing. He actually does stuff. When he says he's going to do it, he does actually do it. He goes through with it. So it's a real bad move from Bob. I mean, I can't wait to see what happens, just from an outside perspective. Like, just to see what happens on the back end of it. Because that's not the fight he should have picked at all.
No, not especially after the most recent re-election round that they had in Florida within the last 2 years. I mean, DeSantis had a landslide re-election victory.
But
and
the
the legislature in that state is 75% in one direction, and it ain't the one Disney wants.
Nope. No, he's anti-Florida, mate. Come on. Those Floridians were forced into it.
Do you see, Valiant, do you see the DeSantis or the Florida government going after him or starting an investigation after this?
They already have.
Oh, have they? Okay.
They already have.
It was I reported that on the 6 Minute Daily. I'm like,
it happened yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, DeSantis had already contacted an inspector general's office in the state of Florida to launch an independent investigation into what Disney did. Here's the thing: it's not going to withstand the scrutiny of law at the end of the day.
No.
And what that means is that if you think for a moment that some little podunk special taxing district that was created by the grace and privilege of the Florida state legislature can somehow magically just override it like it's God, you're out of your mind. It doesn't work that way. And if this thing actually goes into the Florida court system, which it may well wind up that way, I mean, they're not going to allow this to stand, because in that case, you're setting a precedent for 1,700 other special taxing districts to just go, oh, we can do whatever we want and turn this over to a private homeowners association and then make our own rules, and the legislature has no say. Do you actually think that the Florida courts are going to let that one stand? You're out of your mind. And Legal Mindset has been on the show. I mean, I'm reciting what he's saying. He's the expert in Florida law. He spent a decade in the state of Florida setting up special taxing districts. He has sat across the litigation table from Reedy Creek and Disney. And he even told me one time, he's like, when we would litigate, we would get emails from Reedy Creek, and they had CC'd the executive level of Disney corporate in Burbank on the emails. It's like they didn't even care at that point that people knew that it was really Disney running that show, because nobody was going to do anything. That's the level of hubris and arrogance that they had at that point.
It all comes tumbling down.
Yeah.
And it's doing it now. We're watching it. We're watching the pyramid fall.
I couldn't believe the stuff Iger said yesterday. I'm like, you just signed. That was the most ridiculous thing that you just said ever. That is a tactical error that I don't know how you come back from. I don't know how you make peace with DeSantis now.
You don't.
I mean, and he's going to need to do that somehow.
Well, he's not looking to. That's the thing, right? He's not looking to do that.
Not going to be able to fix elections in the state of Florida, but
yeah. We do have some super chats that sort of came in. So Mr. L said, right to freedom of speech unless your name is Gina Carano. This is the thing, again, it's the same argument, right? You do have freedom of speech, and so they do as well, but not freedom from consequence, right? Like, you open your mouth, people can then go, oh, well, let me take a good look at what you've just said. Let me see if that, sort of casts a bad light over you in some way, shape, or form. But from his perspective, he's like, oh yeah, we got freedom of speech. We can just do whatever we want, say whatever we want. So like a massive raging hypocrite, a huge raging hypocrite. We know they are anyway. I can't believe some of that stuff. Marcos A for $4.99. It's being really slow. It says watching Disney destroy itself is the only show produced by them in years worth watching. Honestly, mate, yeah, you're right. Very fun, and not a penny goes to them. F. Iger. Honestly, you are not wrong.
Yeah, Mark.
You're absolutely
spot
not
on.
wrong. It is just an epic shit show. Israel R for $10 says, thank you so much for sharing this information about Disney and content overall. It's so disturbing what has become of Disney. The magic has truly died. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? And the people that called in have absolutely got, I mean, they're so eloquently put as well, right? Like the guy who's like, well, you know, if your focus is Disney Plus and content, well, there's this focus, there's this many households, that's only this, that's like 10% of this. Like, that's why are you doing that? That's ridiculous. Like, why are you focusing on Disney Plus? That's not very good. And then the other chap's going, well, you just disenfranchised a whole generation of families and parents. They're not interested in this crap. Stop it. No, they just keep doubling down.
It's bad. I mean, and look, they have no. He keeps saying in every single one of these things, whether it be a town hall with employees or this most recent annual shareholder meeting or whatever, that they are going to tell, you know, diverse, you know, entertaining stories or whatever verbiage he uses at every single time. You know, he's always doubling down. He's never not. He's the whole reason Disney's like this now. And again, the guy that says that they're aligned with the CCP, I think that was the guy that was talking about in the first proposal, the first shareholder proposal that was voted down. If you remember, Valiant, he basically said, "How are you still aligned with these guys? How is this still the thing? Is this no longer the company of Walt Disney, who was all for not making a profit on, you know, doing things for World War II, et cetera, et cetera." You know, and I mean, this guy took him to task, and then, you know, of course, that was that his proposal was voted down.
Well, he already knew the answer to that because they just nominated and elected Mark Parker.
Yeah,
as the new chairman
the Nike
position.
Guy. Yeah. They brought in a slave guy from Nike to run Disney.
Yeah. Why do you think all of a sudden, the moment Mark Parker was announced as the successor chairman to Susan Arnold a few months ago, about a week after that, is when we got the announcement that China was going to open the gates up for Black Panther and Ant-Man 3 to have a showing there.
That's right.
There's a reason for that.
Yep.
Oh, dear. Olaf Van S for €2 says, awesome stream with great guests, Nate. Thank you so much. I'm glad all you guys are enjoying this stream. And one last super chat dropping in. Christopher Barrard for $1.99 says, Mr. H, this is a next level episode. Great work. Yeah, well, it's not just me. It's everyone else dropping in and adding their 2 cents. So obviously, hand it over to the guests of the panel. Yeah, my input's very mid on this at this point in time. I'm just sort of watching the spectacle and laughing because that's all you can do. I mean,
yeah,
you know, what do you say? And the stuff that they came out with was absolute lunacy. I mean, yeah, Bob Iger saying we want what's best for our cast and crew in conjunction with the, you know, the Florida bill that went put through. I mean, how's that? What's best for you? It's about children. It's about not exposing them to inappropriate things.
How's that affect your cast and crew, you idiot?
Yeah, unless they're groomers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally it. Like, it doesn't affect them in any way.
I'm yelling shareholders multiple times during that call.
Well, exactly. That's the other thing as well, isn't it? I mean, that the devil's in the details, and what's not said and what is said is all that. I mean, the fact that he just goes to cast and crew are employees, blah blah blah. No, you shareholders. You're literally on a fucking shareholder call, mate. Like, you should be pleasing them. Well, those people. But
it shows you his socialist leanings, his neo-Marxist leanings, because he is leaning towards stakeholders, not shareholders. That's his thought process.
Well, but here's the thing. Let's play his game for a second, that he wants to appease the employees. I mean, just to paraphrase what he's saying, right? Well, let's just use the numbers. If we go by polling data and we go by election result data, that means that probably somewhere around 66 to 75% of those employees in the state of Florida that work for the Walt Disney Company supported House Bill 1557, the Parental Rights and Education Bill.
Well, it was just the executives. It's all the higher up levels that weren't interested. You know, it was those people. It was the executives. It was the VPs. all of these other individuals, the actual, playing his game, the sort of low key workers that make up the bulk of the business structure, they would they'd be like, no, I'm all for this 100%. I've got family. I'm working in this fucking Disney park to support my family. So yeah, absolutely, I don't want them exposed to this nonsense. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, instead he decided to go with the completely overpowered, infinitely small minority number of employees that had the biggest bullhorns and loudest voices, as opposed to the majority of the employees, at least those in Florida, that almost certainly supported the bill that Florida passed.
Oh, it's maddening. What an epic shit show. It's going to be so funny. I mean, just the next couple of weeks are going to be gold in terms of Disney anyway, just to see what actually happens with them, because there's so much going on. I mean, we still don't know what's happening with Jonathan Majors. That's all up in the air. That's pretty fucking big. That's literally gone nowhere at this point in time. Like, he's due in court next month. So that's pretty big. Officially charged. You've got now DeSantis, an investigation and these kind of things. You've got them not making money on certain products, delaying things.
I'm in a good spot for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, the MCU is built, or at least Phase Dive is built around this Majors guy. I haven't ever got a chance to ask Valiant this. Valiant, how's that working out? How do you think the Jonathan Majors thing is going to work out for the MCU?
I honestly, I don't think it really matters anymore because nobody's watching the MCU. I mean, they've lost so much of their audience at this point. I don't think anybody could tell you what happened in Ant-Man or who Jonathan Majors is, regardless of what the Hollywood trades are going to push out there saying he's the greatest thing since sliced bread or whatever.
They'll just recast and keep going.
He was the guy that beat up Ant-Man's daughter.
I never saw the movie.
But that's the running joke, isn't it? How he dealt with Cassie Lang in Ant-Man is like, it's become the meme. That was a warning sign. He's so happy to take up roles of beating women and all this kind of stuff. Obviously, allegedly, we don't know what's happened. Blah 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 blah. All that kind of crap. So, but no, you're right. Like, no one is watching that stuff. No one's watching it. It's gone downhill. Ant-Man's lost money, significant money, a lot of money.
What's coming out next for Marvels? It's
Guardians 3
right?
next month.
It's like 2. Yeah, it is next month. Yeah, it is.
May 5th, I think. Like a week from tomorrow, or a month from tomorrow. Yeah,
I think that one will probably end up doing decent, but I still don't think it'll do as well as they're hoping.
I don't think it'll make a profit. It's their only shot at $1 billion for quite some time, and I keep saying that, but it's the reality of it all.
Well, I want to be careful about using the "it'll make a profit" thing even at this point, because mostly because of Disney's cost overruns have been so epically insane. Yeah. If this comes in with another $250 million stated budget, which means then it possibly could have been more, because now we know that a lot of these massive production overruns have not been factored in what public data they've been putting out there.
And any profit on this is probably just going to cover losses on other shit that they've lost.
Well, that's just it. I mean, phases 4 and 5 collectively at this point are in the hole. Throwing Spider-Man out for a second because Sony got to keep 75% of that. But yeah, I mean, it's a mess. It's a total mess. So they're not selling merch, and that's the big thing, right? That's the big money machine. Mario's selling a whole lot of merch right now. We know that. So I don't know. I mean, I want it to be a good movie, Guardians 3. I hope it is, just for the cast's sake. I mean, everybody's loved the Guardians films. But I think there's such a souring and a disconnect at this point. They've lost so much audience. How many of the normies are even going to realize, oh, there's another Guardians movie coming out? Because the last couple ones, I mean, that was at the peak of Marvel's popularity. Every 3 to 4 months, you had a movie coming out, and people were just, in cruise control. They were in automatic mode. Go to the MCU film. Go to the MCU film. That's done. That audience is gone. So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of excitement about Guardians 3 for those who are going to see it. I just don't know how many of those people are out there at this point, considering the wasteland that Phase 4 was, and now the beginning of Phase 5 was a complete bomb. it's a start at least.
Only Marvel movie I've seen since Endgame has been Spider-Man: No Way Home in the theater.
That's the only one I went to the theaters to see.